Hi, this is Paul. I want to talk about, I think, what Alex O'Connor gets right with respect to the question of the existence of God and the problem of evil. Now, I when we talk about the existence of God in this context, I don't think, again, we're using sort of this mental image of a super thing in the sky, or let's say a manager in the sky. That's sort of what people are often getting at when they talk about the existence of God. It's not like they're talking about the existence of a thing, all right? But that's sort of how they imagine it. That's sort of how the word picture goes. And I think Alex O'Connor gets it exactly right here, that often when people talk about the problem of evil, there are perhaps a few people that something really bad has happened to them, and then they say, if there was a God, God would have prevented it. Because I know people who have left the Christian faith because of that, or at least that's what they say, or even that's what they experience. I don't think they're being dishonest. But I think in a conversation like this, Alex O'Connor is very right. I'm very impressed with him through this. He's, unlike many, I'm very impressed with what he's done. So I'm super, he's gotten some education. I think he's understanding Christians better, and that makes the conversation, the argument so much better. But what he says here, I think, is really the crux of the matter for a lot of people. I would have thought the universe would have looked like it had a manager, and it just looks too wild, chaotic, and haphazard, even costly, that's critical, wasteful. If the universe had a manager, it wouldn't be so wasteful.
I think I actually do broadly agree with you, and that when I explain why I don't believe in God, I do make reference to things like the problem of evil, but it's difficult for me to frame those as moralistic objections. It's more that when considering a particular worldview like Christianity, I think, what would I expect the world to look like? And especially considering how suffering is built into the evolutionary system, it makes it very difficult for me to believe that this is being supervised. But like you say, this could just be an evil God. I'm really interested in your characterization of...
Okay, so what he said right there is basically it. And on the previous video, I played the little clip from Malcolm Collins about... I forget what he calls it. But basically that the point of the world must be the avoidance of suffering. Now, Gavin has been around the corner for a long time. He's become a Christian. He's continued to make little videos himself. He's often on Grim Grizz. He's here and there. And I should at some point rectify, I've got a long list of people waiting for Randos conversations. I should at some point rectify the situation and have him on for a conversation. Now, he made this little video, it's only 3 minutes, where he's responding to a Grim Grizz live stream, and I just made a conversation with John Van Donk about what I think this corner is about and how this is functioning right now and all the little drama we've got going on right now. But part of what I think this corner is really about is sort of a fertile space for us to try out our ideas on each other, hear from each other about them, positive or negative, good, bad, right, or wrong, and test them with each other. And that's really what's so cool about it. Now here he's going to talk about, he's got a picture here of a whiteboard that Grim Grizz has up in his house. And the first thing that he has here is, this is a PvP server. Well, what does that mean? Well, there's sort of game servers where you play against a game. And one of the things you quickly learn, especially if you play something like Civilization, which is the only computer game I play, if you play against the computer, well, the computer basically has to cheat because it's nowhere as smart as a human being. So, but then you have the kinds of servers where you're playing against other people, and those are, often the most exciting ones because people are smart. And part of what Grim Grizz does with the portal through which he's sort of forcing us to understand our life now in this world of screens is that this is a PvP server. And what does that mean? It means you can get hurt. And I almost hear Alex O'Connor say, well, the universe should be like a computer game, but with a really easy AI, so you can just win and win and win and win. And the irony, of course, is that most of us have absolutely no desire to play in that server. It sort of reminds me of The Matrix when Morpheus and Agent Smith are having this conversation, and Agent Smith says, well, this is we had to make another iteration of the game because we made this game in which the world was perfect and none of you bought it. And it reminds me of notes from The Underground from Dostoevsky that, human beings, there's something going on. This is a PvP server.
Where there is hope. And so, I just wanted to throw in a few thoughts. First of all, it means he's potentially surrounded by people who are hopeful, which is, and he is being of service to people who are hopeful. My second point would be, the thought is that if you're an only child, then you aren't introduced to the fact that this is a PvP server as soon as someone who has siblings that are close in age. And if you were not raised with a father, then there's a chance that you did not experience these rite of passages into manhood, which would include being pushed into discomfort, uncomfortable situations, so that you would then have out the other side a feeling of success, that you can manage the discomfort and become better for it. I think those are the main points.
And that sort of is the main point, because when I listen to Alex talk here, I almost get the sense of, well, what kind of world did you want? Well, yeah, want, but do you really want that? It's such a shallow picture, yet such a common picture of the world, that everything should be nice and easy. I mean, it's part of what's happening in, let's say, public schools. Okay, no dodgeball, no tag because you can't touch anybody, and none of this and none of that. They're sort of wrapping children up so they can't touch each other. So let's not have it be a PvP server. Let's have it be all safety, and then everything will be nice. But the irony of that is that we have that in many areas of life. In fact, all of the angst and concern about what human beings have done to the planet is not so much by our disorder, it's by our order. People go out into farms and they see these vast fields of sameness all over that are enormously productive and devoid of any insects. Why? Insects are just not into our picture. This is the management of the world. And one of the best videos that has been around for, not very long was this conversation between McGilchrist and Vervaeke and Smachtenberger, where they made the point that, McGilchrist's point that this non-PvP server that everybody imagines, well, if there is a God, the universe would be like this. Well, in some ways, that's the emissary mind God. Everything would all be nice and ordered like a cornfield. And of course, the irony is that, well, that's kind of destroying us. I mean, if you make that argument and you want to blow that up, you say, well, then by all means, let's get rid of the rainforests. They're so chaotic and wasteful and unmanageable, and let's plow them out and just make them all grazing land for cattle. Let's get rid of all the undomesticated animals and just have domesticated animals. That is relieving the world of the wild. That is exactly what that vision is. Now, the fact that, again, Alvin Plantinga actually, and he mentions Alvin Plantinga in that video. If he would read Alvin Plantinga's God, Freedom, and Evil, maybe he has. The point of that book by Alvin Plantinga, it's been out, I think it was written in the 70s, is that, Well, that the problem of evil is actually only a problem pastorally. It's not really a problem philosophically, because the problem we have is exactly what you see here, that we are measuring by our expectations. And I think the world, if God was in the world would be managed. Oh. The world would be completely under the domain of human rationality. Oh. And where has that gotten us? Well, depending on where you are in the climate change argument, it's gotten us a lot of CO2. It's gotten rid of a lot of rainforest. The irony is that this group of people on one hand wants to say, oh, the world should be managed. On the other hand, they flip around and say, well, human beings are a plague on the planet, and the world would be better. What, with all wildness and no human beings? I mean, this vision, which I think is at the heart for many people, not all, of the problem of evil, is that the world is not managed. This is from Lewis's Miracles. Now, if there is such a God, and if he descends to rise again, then why can we understand why Christ is at once so much like the Corn King and so silent about him? He is like the Corn King because the Corn King is a portrait of him. The similarity is not in the least unreal or accidental, for the Corn King is derived through human imagination from the facts of nature, and the facts of nature from her creator. The death and rebirth pattern is in her because it was first in him. This is Jonathan Peugeot's argument for the resurrection, which actually Rick Walker made on the live stream today. On the other hand, elements of nature religion are strikingly absent from the teaching of Jesus and from the Judaic preparation which led up to, precisely because in them nature's original is manifest itself. In them you are from the very onset got in behind nature religion and behind nature herself. Where the real God is present, the shadows, where the real God is present, the shadows of that God do not appear, and which the shadows and that the shadows resembled does. The Hebrews throughout their history were being constantly headed off from the worship of nature gods, not because the nature gods were in all respects unlike the God of nature, but because at best they were merely like, and it was the destiny of that nation to be turned away from likeness to the thing itself. The mention of that nation turns our attention to one of these features in the Christian story, which is repulsive to the modern mind. To be frank, we do not all like the idea of a chosen people. Democrats at birth and education, we prefer to think that all nations and individuals start level in the search for God. That is, of course, obviously the image of science. Or even that all religions are equally true. It must be admitted at once that Christianity makes no concession to this point. It does not tell of a human search for God at all, but of something done by God for, to, and about man. And the way in which it is done is selective, undemocratic, and to the highest degree. After the knowledge of God has been universally lost or obscured, one man from the whole earth, Abraham, is picked out. He is separated, miserably enough, we may suppose, from his natural surroundings, sent to a strange country, and made the ancestor of a nation who are to carry the knowledge of the true God. Within this nation there is further selection. Some die in the desert, some remain behind in Babylon. Surely Alex O'Connor's God would not have allowed any of that. See, clearly there's no administration because some are dying in the desert, some are going to Babylon. I just finished my rough draft for Sunday on Jesus' parables. And if you read Jesus' parables, Jesus basically says this vision of the administrator God is not at all the way any of this is going to work. Is the parable of the sower. Most of the seed goes nowhere. Tiny bit of seed produces 100-fold. It's the Pareto principle. It looks just like nature. And I was, no. If there was a God, and what he's really saying is, if there was a God in my image, I would manage the world like a cornfield. How's that going for us? Now, cornfields are good, but the whole world can't be a cornfield. There's a further selection still. The process grows narrower and narrower, sharpens until at last into one small bright point like the head of a spear. It is a Jewish girl at her prayers. All humanity, so far as concerns its redemption, has narrowed to that point. Such a process is very unlike what the modern feelings demand, but it is startling like what nature habitually does. Selectiveness. Well, Dawkins should very much be for this. And with it, we must allow enormous wastage in her method. Out of the enormous space, a very small portion is occupied by matter at all. Of all the stars, perhaps very few, perhaps only one, have planets. Of the planets in our own system, probably only one supports organic life. In the transmission of organic life, countless seeds and spermatozoa are emitted, some few that are selected for a distinction of fertility. Among the species, only one is rational. Within that species, only a few attain excellence of beauty, strength, or intelligence. He goes on from there. But this is the point of what we see from this imagination, not that the problem of evil. It's actually the problem of order that they have. It's the problem of wildness. We don't believe in wildness, therefore there can't be a God. Yet if you take all of these smart people and say, okay, what if we manage the whole business? This is basically Paul Kingsnorth's argument. What if we manage the whole business? We would get it right. How well have we done with what we've had already? Give us the whole pie? Are we really going to do that well with it? So it's not really the problem of evil. It's the problem of wildness. Leave a comment.